Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Hey everybody, welcome to our Fireside Chat. Today we'll be talking to a coach from Team RunRun, Des Clarke. Des and I go back a few years. We both worked at a run specialty store over in Phoenix, Arizona at the time, and so we're pretty excited to get her on the podcast. She is a most recent finisher of the Cocodona 250 plus finisher of the Muggian 100 twice, as well as the Eastern States 100. So pretty excited to get her on here, talk about her coaching philosophy, talk about Team RunRun's coaching philosophy, and then how she balances it all with being a mom, being a, having a job, and then coaching as well, and all of that good stuff. Before we bring Des on, just a reminder that the Monarch Triathlon will be taking place on September 30th in Kingman, Arizona. It is an all-female point-to-point triathlon with actual swim start in Bullhead City, Arizona, and finishing in Kingman, Arizona. Pretty exciting stuff. Check out monarchtriathlon.com. We also want to make sure you know about Switchback and their neck gaiters. Head to switchback.com, swchbak.com, and save 20% off using code MAY20. You have between today and tomorrow to do that. Again, May20, MAY20, to save 20% on the neck gaiters that Switchback offers, and they are great. I have 4 of them myself. I've just invited Des to the conversation, so hopefully she'll be able to join us in a few minutes without any technology issues, and we'll be able to have a conversation. Perfect timing. Hey, Des, How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. So I was giving the audience a little bit of your resume, shall we say, and I'm sure people cannot wait to hear your stories about Cocodona 250, but also 2-time Muggian finisher and Eastern States 100 finisher. So it's not as if you're new to the ultra trail running world, correct?
Right. I just over doubled it.
Yeah, exactly. So give us some insight into Cocodona 250. We're going to talk about your coaching philosophy here in a moment too, but obviously this is fresh on everybody's mind as it just was completed about 3 weeks ago. So one, why did you choose to do the race? And then let's talk about what transpired during the event.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, like I was always one of those people, when I did my first 100, which was Eastern States, like I knew, I was like, I'm going to do this and I want to keep doing this, right? Like I want to do 100 probably like once a year, figure some stuff out with it. And I always also said, I'll never do a 200 miler, right? Like that's just, it's ridiculous, right? and not anything against anybody that wants to do a 200 miler, but there's no way I'm ever going to do a 200 miler, right? And then that was back in, I think it was like 2019, like late 2019, early 2020, that Jamil started like put out this teaser for Cocodona. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm in trouble, right? So it was just, I'm a transplant to Arizona, but like ever since, as soon as we moved here, it felt like home.
Yeah.
And so Cocodona just seemed like this huge adventure that I could take through my home state and see some of these places that I haven't even seen at all, but getting there by foot and connecting it all with trails. So I think that was like the adventure of it all is kind of what pulled me in, which I think is like, if you look at their website, that's kind of what they use to pull people in. And so, I wasn't, the first 2 years, it just didn't work out for me to be ready for the race. And so then this past December of 2022, I was in the Hard Rock lottery and I'm like, okay, if I don't get into Hard Rock, I'm going to do Cocodona. And I said it multiple times to myself, and I said it to my husband, and I said it to my friends, and then like Hard Rock lottery came around, and unsurprisingly I didn't get into Hard Rock because I had 2 tickets, and it's like, and I was like, oh, so I guess I'm in for Cocodona.
So did you press register the very next day, or the moment that you didn't get into Hard Rock? Did you wait?
I waited, and the reason I waited is because so I don't know how many people know this, but like Aravaipa has this really great program where you can volunteer for them and earn credits toward other races. So Cocodona, it's an extensive race, and I was like, okay, for this to work for me, I gotta put in some volunteer hours and get that cost down a little bit. So I volunteered up through I think it was February-ish, which was when the price was gonna increase again. So I volunteered through February, and then it was funny because through the volunteering, they were like, well, why don't you just work for us if you're volunteering for us all the time? And I was like, yeah, guess that works.
Here's my application.
Right. But I can't work Cocodona.
Right. Anything else I'm in for. So,
yeah.
As a finisher myself of it, I was not exactly the idea that you presented in terms of, if I don't get into this event, I'll do Cocodona. It was sort of like a chicken or the egg with another friend of mine, and he was like, I press register, it's your turn. And I was like, what? Wait, why are we doing this? Like, okay, register. So I have experience with the event myself. So what was your favorite part of Cocodona?
It's hard to say. One of the things that I think maybe surprised me a little bit is I actually liked the first day. So everybody kind of gets ground down on that 22-mile section in that first 37 miles up to Crown King. But I think I kind of went into it with the mindset of this is going to be really hard, and it's going to take me a really long time. And I can't freak out about how long it's taking me, and I can only go as fast as I can go, because nobody wins that race by running the first 37 miles hard, right? That's not how it works. And so my plan for that was just, I need to get to Crown King with a smile on my face. And I managed to do that. And then I think just because I had that mindset, then I was able to enjoy the time with other runners and enjoy the scenery. There's one part where you climb up, right, and you can look back down on Lake Pleasant, which is someplace that I train all the time. So it was just really cool to take in that experience.
So I'm going to say you're welcome for us as the guinea pigs in year one, because nobody knew what the hell was going to happen. And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I was like, holy mother of pearl, this is so hard. If the rest of the race is like this, there's no way.
Right. And it was funny because I was the aid station captain at Lane Mountain that first year. So I saw all of you coming up that, cresting the hill and just looking like you were going to die. And something in my brain was like, I definitely want to do this now.
Yeah. Right.
I think it might have been just the intrigue that somebody could look that bad at mile 37 and then go run another 213 miles, right? It's crazy.
It's crazy. So for me, leaving Mingus, so I left as the sun was coming up, and the sunrise was gorgeous, and I got to run down that super rocky section as you're heading into Jerome, and man, I just love that. To me was my favorite part, was leaving Mingus and running down the mountain and just having a blast. And Jerome was super cool too.
It's that's why it's hard, because so much of the course is just so cool as far as the scenery and the history and everything for it. And then I also, outside of the course, I had my pacers, and so 2 of my pacers and then my crew chief were actually people that I coach. So that was also a really cool experience to have them out on the trail with me and kind of get to know them a little bit better.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So if you have a favorite part, then you have to have a least favorite part. What was one section of Cocodona that if Jamil could take out, you wouldn't be upset?
Man, if they could teleport us across Fain Ranch, I would not have complained. So this year for Fain Ranch, there was no road or trail or anything. You were just running across the grass. So it was it was rutted from all the cow hooves, right? And then there's this tall grass growing out of it, and the grass gave me a rash on the back of my calves. And then you're running along the 89, so there's traffic. So it's flat and boring, but also actually hard to run because the footing was so bad. And then you're looking at Mingus Mountain, which you're about to climb, and it's just not getting any closer. And so I was with Paul, who's one of my clients at the time, and I was like, Paul, just so you know, if you decide to do Cocodona, because he had been thinking about it, I'm like, I will pace you for every section I can possibly pace you, except for this one. You got to find somebody else for this one.
Yeah, I went through Fain Ranch and during the day too, and by the time I got to the aid station before you go to Mingus is when it finally the sun had started to set at that point. So I got the experience of why is Mingus not getting any closer? Being able to see it and being why does it still it's still in the same spot?
Right.
I will say my least favorite part was leaving Eldon, because I'm it's only 9 miles, right?
Yeah.
But it's straight down that Jeep road, and
Yeah.
man, my feet were killing me going down that Jeep
Right?
road.
Yeah.
Just torn up. Like, if there was a way to like jump off the mountain with a parachute, I would have done that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you think, you're like, oh, I'm going downhill, it's going to be easy now. But it was just like, it was so painful to run down that hill. And it was funny because like, so there was 3 different parts where I dropped pacers on the uphill. Because like, I just have this mentality, like when I start on an uphill and I get those poles going and I'm like, I'm going to the top, right? I got to
Yep.
get there as soon as possible. And so I dropped my pacer going up Eldon, and it did not take her very long to catch me. Like, we started going down that road, and I was like, oh, hey, you're back.
Did you have cyclists coming up the Jeep road when you were going down?
No, I did not.
I saw cyclists going up there was like 2 or 3 of them going up Eldon on the Jeep road as I was descending, and I was like, I really shouldn't be complaining because those guys have got to be in a lot more pain than I am right now. Like, that's got to be a brutal climb.
Yeah. Well, and I had the experience though this year too of like all the people who did Eldon Crest, who were only like 30 miles into their run. They were all like flying past me, right? And I'm like, oh, great.
Looking all fresh as a daisy.
Exactly. They're like, are you doing a 250? I'm like, how could you tell? Because I look like I'm dying.
Right. How long did it take you to finish?
It was about 108 hours.
So you've got 108 hours on your face, right? And they're just fresh at starting it. Like, what gave it away?
Yeah, exactly. You could smell me, right? As you came up behind me. That's how you knew.
For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamundi. I'm the founder of Run Try Bike. We're talking to Des Clarke, who is a coach for Team RunRun, and we were just reminiscing about her run at Cocodona 250. If you have questions for Des, we're about to jump into her coaching philosophy. Hit the little question mark on the bottom right-hand side, type it in there, and we'll make sure we'll get to it. You can put it in the comments as well, but if you do, it might fly by and I might miss it. So probably best off to put it in a little question mark area there. So Des, you are a coach with Team RunRun. How long have you been coaching athletes?
So I've been coaching, I'm trying to think, like 6 years now, 6 or 7 years. I got my coaching certification through RRCA back when I was in Pennsylvania, and moved out to Arizona, and I was coaching on my own. Like, I have an LLC, right, and I was kind of starting my own coaching business, and then Team RunRun reached out to me, and that was probably 4 years ago now, and they were a little new at the time, and what they kind of offered was a platform for coaches to coach on. So it's not like I don't coach with anybody else, and they don't really, they're very, you're very autonomous with them, right? So you get to set how you coach, you get to choose how many people you coach, you get to choose which clients you take, right? Do you want ultra runners? Do you want 5Kers, newbies, whatever it might be? But they're kind of there to like provide that support for you, both through like the business side of things, so like billing and taxes and discounts on coaching software and stuff, but then also kind of having that community of coaches that you can kind of plug into if you need to.
Very cool. So the people that own Team RunRun don't dictate how you coach them.
No, not at all. And it's so Matt and Julie Urbanski are the founders, and it's kind of cool because I feel like now we're like friends, and we've definitely like talked about our coaching philosophies, but it's never like, oh, but if you coach for Team RunRun, like you need to believe this or you need to do this or whatever it might be. And I think that's the nice thing about it is like we offer this platform and we have all these coaches on it, and like I'm not the right coach for everybody, right? Like nobody's the right coach for everybody. And so people can come to the platform and kind of like look through and figure out which coach is offering what they're looking for.
Very cool. So then do you guys in a private Zoom meeting, let's say, have all the coaches come along and just kind of share thoughts, philosophies, workouts to help develop each other?
Yeah, I mean, we have, it's optional. So, and I guess that's the other nice thing is like you get to choose how involved you are with Team RunRun, right? You can just use it as like a way to get your name out there, or you can get even more involved in the community. And so they offer a monthly coaches call. And so usually Matt has like an agenda there, and he goes over stuff that's pertinent to the coaches at the time. But then at the end, they like open it up. So if a coach has something that's going on, they can bring it to the group. And even with the agenda items, like Matt's always asking for other coaches to kind of give their input on what they think on things. And then also too, if you're like, if you're trying to grow your coaching business, that you can be like, oh, I had this idea to bring people in, and they can either be like, oh, that's a great idea, and like this coach tried it, and this works if you do it this way best, or they can be like, oh my gosh, you don't want to do that. Like we've done that before and it didn't work. And this is something else that might be a better option.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So so the coaches do have a benefit from participating a little bit more than just putting their name in association with kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely.
So then what's your coaching philosophy? And then I'd also like to have you answer the question of who would be the ideal fit for you? Who do you like to coach, the type of athlete?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so as far as like coaching philosophy, I always struggle to like put this in an elevator speech, right? But I think the two things for me, one is like, I always tell my clients, like, you can't just run, right? Like if you want to just run, there's probably another coach out there for you, but I believe really strongly in one, taking rest days or down weeks or whatever for recovery, but also doing like strength training and mobility. It doesn't mean you have to be in the gym, like deadlifting 400 pounds, but you need to do some kind of strength and mobility if you want to be able to run long term, right? And especially when you're looking at the trails.
Yeah.
So a lot of my clients just happen to be trail runners. Like I coach road and trail. I do both, but I think kind of like you attract similar people. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them end up being trail runners. And with trail running, we're not just running linearly, right? We're jumping over rocks and we're doing all these movements, and you need to have some strength or you're going to end up breaking yourself down. So I think that's one thing is like, right, the rest and recovery, the strength and mobility. And then I think the other thing is like running is kind of like an exploration, right? No, whether you're like out doing your first 5K or your 50th 5K or you're doing a new trail race or whatever, it's like you're finding out stuff about yourself mm-hmm. that you can then apply to real life, right? Like what's special about ultra running isn't that I can run 250 miles. It's like how it makes me a better person.
100%.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing too, is like I'm looking for somebody that they want somebody to partner with them and help figure out how they can fit this into their life and kind of like maximize the benefit. And the benefit doesn't need to be that they run the fastest race they possibly can. It's like, what are you looking to get out of this? And how can I help make sure you do that?
Yeah, I take a very similar philosophy to the athletes that I coach. Like, so, I put in a core stretching and balance program for them to do 4 to 5 days a week. Again, you don't have to go to the gym to do it. Do it in your house. Do it while you're cooking dinner, right. That kind of stuff. Because it is so important, especially for trail running for sure, but then also for, I coach triathletes, because you're going to go from swimming, which is horizontal, to cycling, which is vertical, to then running, which is, bouncing up and down. And so all of that core stretching and balance work is super important. But then to your point, go and do the strength work. Like, I'd like to get your take on this. One of the things I tell my athletes is it isn't always the fastest runner that wins the race. It's always the strongest runner that wins the race. Right. And they're like, what do you mean by that? Like, to your point, I can deadlift 400 pounds. And it's like, no, it's the one who has the ability to maintain their pace for the longest period of time. And in order to do that, you have to be strong to do that. So I'd like to get your thought process on that sort of philosophy. Is that something that you would think about and adhere to, or is that the type of conversation you have?
Yeah, I think so. Because, I mean, they've even done studies, right, where, like, the people that are winning ultras they're the people that are slowing down the least, right? So it's, like, kind of staving off that breakdown. And I think the other thing with the strength training, too, is that, like, if you're strength training and you're not getting injured, then you're able to train consistently. And I think consistency is probably, like, the most underrated skill in running, right? Like, Absolutely. It's not, like, being able to, like, lay down, like, 4-minute mile repeats, right? It's like being able to consistently put in the work.
I heard this one time, and it pertained to, I think, baseball. It was a manager. He was asked the question, what's the best ability you've ever had or you look for in a player? And he said availability, right? So it's the guy who doesn't get hurt and he can show up every single day and participate in the game, because obviously if you're hurt, it's detrimental to the team in and of itself, but running's the same way, right? You can't get stronger, faster, fitter if you're nursing an injury and not allowing it to rehab. That's the other part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I had a client in the past, and they didn't want to take any days off, right? And then they were getting injured, and I was like, first of all, like, you're not taking planned days off, and so your body is giving you unplanned days off, right? And they were like, well, I don't understand, like, how do I stop getting injured? And I'm like, well, you're not listening to what I'm telling you to do, and if you don't listen to what I'm telling you to do, then it's not going to work, right? You kind of need to, like, you kind of need to trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually, because saying that too was interesting. I had a client, and she had been training on her own for a while. She was doing marathons, and she wanted to do a 100-miler. So she was like, oh, I'm going to bring on a coach to train me both for the marathons, but also for the 100-miler, right? And then she was on the way to a race and was like, oh, like talking to her spouse, like, I need to talk to Des because, like, she's not giving me enough mileage, right? Like, my mileage is way lower than what it was before, and I think I'm not hitting enough mileage, and I need to talk to her so we can change that. And her spouse was like, well, what if maybe you were training too much before, and like, this is the right amount of mileage? And she's like, no, I think this is. And then she set a PR at the marathon, and she was like, I'm in. Whatever Des tells me to do, I'm doing it. So I think some of that is, it's difficult too to like just get the athlete, I think, to trust the process. And then also sometimes, like, I spend a lot of time as a coach, maybe you do too, like talking people off of ledges, right? Like,
100%.
oh my gosh, like this happened, and like I got sick, and now I'm never gonna be ready for this race, and like, and I think convincing people too that like I'm gonna write, like, I don't even show them the training plan for like months out, right? I show them the training plan for like 2 to 4 weeks out.
Oh, you're
and then
you're giving even a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
Like I put my plans in on Saturday for the upcoming week.
Okay, yeah, but like, so I don't show them everything, because I think the other thing is like I'm like, I'll plan training plan, but nobody actually hits that ideal, right? Or very few people. So then it's like, so what we're trying to do is get in as much of this as possible, but it's planned that this is the ideal. And if you get an injury or like a little niggle that you have to take a couple days off, or you get sick, or like you have something going on with your kids and you miss a workout, like, it's not going to derail your whole plan. Like, trust me that we can still get you to the race and have you run it.
Yeah, I think especially when people are starting something new, I don't want to use the word beginner, right? Because it's not somebody who's just starting out running. They might be going from the 50-miler to the 100-miler, and that's new to them, right? And so it's hard for them to understand sometimes, like, it's okay if you have to take your kids to school and you miss a workout. Like, your fitness isn't going to go from 100 to 0 in 24 hours. And so you play sort of that, I don't want to say therapist, but you play that life coach a little bit, because you have to consistently remind them that it's all going to be okay, as long as we get back on track. Now, if you start missing weeks on end, then we have to readjust.
Right, absolutely. And I always tell my clients too, like, I'm there for them as a person too. So like, even if it's not running, if there's something going on and you need somebody to talk to about it, like, I can talk to you about it, because it's all interrelated, right? And I'm not in this so that I can like go and be like, oh, well, I had an athlete that won this race, and took third at this race and did this. I'm there to help people be better people.
My first coach, one of my first coaches, I think she was Coach Maria Simone, who runs No Limits Endurance Coaching, and I coach under her umbrella, told me, and this is going on, 10 or 11 years, and I've not forgotten it. She told me one day, Jason, stress is stress. So whether it's work stress, relationship stress, whatever it is, and good stress is in there too. So you have to understand that your body is reacting to all of these stresses, the training stress, and then outside of training stress. And so you do need recovery days, and you need that kind of stuff. Like, you can't keep going 100 miles an hour 100% of the time.
Right.
That's right. Like, that's sometimes difficult. So when you said coaching software, are you guys using Training Peaks?
So I use Final Surge, but coaches on Team RunRun have the option to choose Final Surge, Training Peaks, or VDOT.
So the reason why I asked that question, so in Training Peaks, like, if you put in a planned workout and they execute the planned workout to within, I don't know what it is, like 5 percentage points, right? So you say an hour, if they ran for an hour and 5 minutes, or they ran for 55 minutes, it turns it green. If they do something that's like not within that context, it turns it orange. And then if they don't do it at all, it turns it red, right? And so I try to coach my athletes, like, we want to see a Christmas tree. We don't want to see 100% green, right? Like, that's damn near impossible, because there are other things in your life that you're now sacrificing to get the workout in. So with the program, does it have that red light, green light, 1, 2, 3?
It's funny because, like, it doesn't have it. I don't see that, but the athlete sees it, and I didn't even know it existed. And then I had an athlete that was just like, well, like, if you put 6 miles, then I feel like I need to do 6 miles because it needs to turn green. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, could you explain this to me? Because I haven't seen it from the athlete side, right? I've seen it from my side. And so we clarified the same thing. And another thing that I like too, Alexi Pappas just had like a quote that I saw recently that was like, if you're training for something, you have to realize that like 1/3 of the days are going to be great, and 1/3 of the days are going to be okay, and 1/3 of the days are going to suck, right? And you just need to like go into it expecting that. So it's not like, again, too, like if you miss a workout or if you have a workout and it's just terrible, like that's to be expected, right? We're not machines. Like you can do the same, you can eat perfect nutrition and sleep the exact number of hours and do all this stuff, and it doesn't mean that every single workout is going to be perfect, right? Our humans aren't machines.
I just had this conversation too, where you could have the perfect training cycle where you, like everything just feels right, and then on race day, some shit happens. Like
right,
right? All of a sudden, it's super hot, or it's super cold, or it's super humid, or it's rain. Like, and the training cycle that you went through, the result doesn't equate to the training cycle that you had, right? But you can't put the value only in on race day. Like
right.
you've gone through 16 or 20 weeks of training, and the journey has been phenomenal. And so you take that and build. Like, how often are you working through with your athletes on stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like talking to them too about like, well, like, oh, maybe it wasn't you. Like maybe you're not feeling nauseous because you can't tolerate food or you ate the wrong food. Maybe you're feeling nauseous because it was 20 degrees warmer than it usually is on race day, right? And sometimes too, like just like things that we don't, again, our bodies are not machines. And like, I think too with women, right? Like where you are in your cycle can impact it too. And I went through a period where like every race, so it's like the last like day or two before my cycle is like when I feel just terrible, right? And my heart rate is off and my breathing is off and everything's just off and I feel terrible just to start with. And I went through a period of like a year and a half where every single race, that's the time period it fell in, right? And I'm just like, you can't like, and I was like, I know I can race better than this, but like, what do? You just have to take what you're given.
Like I had a DNF at the Canyons 100 miler, and training cycle wasn't great. Don't get me wrong, but it was like 85 degrees that day, and every day before that was like 50. And then of course on Sunday after the race is over, it's back down to 50.
Right.
And the point of this is that you can't control the things you can't control, right? It was 85 degrees. I didn't expect it. So how much water could I possibly drink? How much food could I possibly get in when I wasn't prepared for it in that sense? Yeah. So, things happen. We have to understand that, and we as coaches have to reemphasize this, right? That the value of the athlete isn't in the result. The value of the athlete is in the process that they've gone through. And to your point, what have you learned and how do you apply that to other parts of your life now?
Yeah. And I think that's another point too, is I try and be like, I try not to be like obnoxiously positive with my coaching, but I try and be like realistically positive, right? Like, okay, like that didn't go how it was supposed to go, but like what can we take positive from it and move it forward? Because it's not like you're allowed to be upset about your race for a short amount of time, right? That day, maybe a couple days after, but then it comes to a point where it's like that doesn't define you as a person, and you need to take your lessons and move forward from it, right?
For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamundi. I'm the founder and one of the co-owners of Run Try Bike. We're talking to Des Clarke, who is a coach under the Team RunRun umbrella, who is a most recent finisher of the Cocodona 250, as well as Muggian 100 2 times and the Eastern States 100 once. And so, Des, I want to talk about one other part that you just mentioned with it, which is life. And so you're talking to athletes about their value and how it's not just all on race day and everything else. But part of it has to also be how they balance all of this stuff, the training schedule you put forth, plus their responsibilities outside training. How do you balance it all as a mom working for Aerovipa, plus being an athlete who's training for events on your own?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And some of it is like, I think you get used to it is some of it. There's this quote that like, if you want something done, you give it to a busy person. But I think it's about priorities, right? So like you have to figure out what's important to you. And if running is one of those things, then you need to make sure that you're putting that in first, right? So like for me, it's like, I mean, you kind of just named them, but like family, running, and work are important. Work because I need to feed my family and my running habit, right? But I think like, so then you need to think like, okay, I have this is what has to happen my week, and you need to plan it out and then you kind of need to stick to that, right? Like, and it doesn't mean that if you wake up one morning and you're just like exhausted and you know what I mean. There's limits to that, but I think it's like right now in Arizona, right? We're getting to that time of the year where it's like if you want to run, you either get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or you run this 115. Which one do you want to do?
Right.
Right. So I think that's the thing is I'm big on planning. I'm big on communication with like my kids and my husband, making sure that right now my work schedule is kind of pretty flexible. It's nice that with the coaching I can kind of do it whenever, but I get calls that get scheduled, right? And
Yep.
and Aravaipa, it's like one day I'm working maybe 13 hours and then another day I'm not working at all. So I think that's the big thing is I'm planning on my own and I'm communicating to make sure that like the things that are important with what's going on with my family also get worked into that schedule. And then I think the other thing that I used to do this thing where like I was always like, yes. Like, hey, do you want to do this? Yes, 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 yes. And then I get to the point I'm like, okay, now I said yes to too many things. And so now I need to be like, I'm sorry, actually, no, no, and no, right? So I think that's the other thing is I kind of, as I've gotten used to it, you understand what is viable for you to handle at any given time. And that can change too, right? There are times when you have to prioritize work. There are times when you have to prioritize running, and there are times when you have to prioritize family. Mm-hmm. And it's just knowing that, like, just because right now I might have to prioritize work, right, and my running, I can't run as much as I might want to, doesn't mean that I can't ever run as much as I might want to, right? So I think that's the other thing is, like, also talking to my clients and being like, okay, like, so for your work schedule, how does it look, right? Do you have certain times of the year that are busy? Or I have a client now, and she's moving to a new practice space, right? She has her own practice. She's moving to a new practice space, and when we decided, like, okay, the race you were going to do this year, it's not going to work out, right?
Right.
And so let's make a plan for something that's going to work with the schedule and the reality that you have.
That's a lesson I learned really hard over the last probably 2 years. When I launched Run Try Bike, it was like, we can start our own business and do all the racing too, right? And the reality is, no, you can't.
Yeah.
And I just put up a post today where I registered for an event in a couple of months, and I'm excited about it. And I realized that one, I'm getting older, so trying to compare myself to when I started at 34 is just not the same because I'll be 50 at the end of this year. But I'm also not in the same training space where training has to be more specific and more pinpointed because I still have to run the company. Content has to go out and billing has to get done and collections has to get done and sales leads have to get done. Like all the things to run a business will have to get done, and that has to take priority. Because to your point, that's how you feed family. And so, we have to focus on that and adjust. So it's pretty cool that you gave an example of a client who is moving into a new space, has to address that and adjust the racing part of it all. Because again, the business, her practice is more important than running, and running will always be there.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So, we're going to wrap up here because we've already, I didn't realize this, but man, we've already gone through 35 minutes of conversation, which is awesome. So where are we going to see Des racing next? And I know it's only been 3 weeks since Cocodona is finished, and it's not one of those pressure on you, but have you had events in your mind that you're like, I think I might be able to do this in October or November?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I'm thinking, although I go through this, like every time I do a big race, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll like back off a little while and I'm going to do shorter, faster stuff. Like that'll be fun. And then I never end up doing that. So I think like when I think of like what I want to do, I mean, long term, like Hard Rock is, out of all the big races, like nothing against them. I'm not really interested in running Western States. I'm not really interested in running Leadville, but something about Hard Rock really speaks to me. So I think that's the thing is like I'm probably going to, and the nice thing about that is then the qualifiers for Hard Rock are also races that I'm interested in. So it kind of pairs nicely so I think probably like I'll continue with my plan of like the years that I'm healthy, 100-miler a year. I'm toying with the idea of doing Mogollon again this September. Some of it will depend on work. Like if Aravaipa needs me to work Mogollon, then I can't. I don't think I can run it too. I don't know. I did work Cocodona the week before and the week after the actual race. I was doing event stuff for it, so it might be possible. But
Are you interested in hard rock because of the event itself or because of the San Juans?
I think both. So I did soft rock last year, where we started at Lake City, right, and we run from town to town.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah, it was such a cool experience, and I think it was interesting in that like there were times when I'm like, this is amazing, and I would love to do this race, and then there were a couple times where I'm like, I don't think I can do this, right? Like you know hard rock is hard, but you don't realize how hard until you're actually there.
Yeah.
But I think it's like it's like the beauty of the course, and just that it's so like I like those like technical rugged type courses, right?
Plenty of that in that area.
Yeah, but then I think it is the event itself though, and the fact that it's kind of like small and I've volunteered there 2 years now, and it's just like there's a really cool vibe to it. So I think it's kind of both of those things together.
And you haven't mentioned Ouray, which takes place in that area. Why not? If you don't get into hard rock, why not go for Ouray?
I mean, that's a possibility.
Okay.
It's on my list, like Ouray, Angeles Crest, High Lonesome, right? All those races are definitely on my list of possible races I'd like to do.
Ouray's tough.
The other thing with hard rock is I really like, so Gino Lucrezi, who founded Trail Sisters, is now on the board of hard rock, and they've been doing some really cool work to slowly move the needle on female participants. I think 3 years ago, it was there was 9 women, and now this year there's 27 women, right, out of the 135 that run it. So I think that's also draws me in that it's this race that traditionally women haven't really been seen as competitors at it. I don't know if that's the right way of saying it. I don't want to upset anybody, but with what I'm saying, but women haven't been as included in it. It's kind of like this old boys club.
Upset them.
And I don't think they've done it intentionally. It's just the way that it worked out, right? So I think it's cool what they're doing, and I want to be a part of that. So if I'm entering even if I don't get into hard rock, if I'm entering the lottery for hard rock, I'm making the chances that another woman's going to get in better. So I kind of like that too.
That's cool. I like that philosophy. Having faced at Ouray in that space, that's just it's difficult. It's just hard, man. And so it would fit right into that whole world that you just described. There's also, they have a last man standing event out there that I participated in a couple of years ago, and it takes place right at the gazebo where Ouray is famous for, and it's pretty cool. It's a little easy. I shouldn't say easy. None of that stuff out there is easy when there's no oxygen. 2 miles out and 2 miles back kind of thing. You didn't mention a 200. So are you closing the chapter on 200s? Do you think that there might be one in the future?
No. So if you look at the finishing footage of Cocodona, and I also have a copy of it on my phone that Christine's husband Scott took, I have video proof that I said I will never ever do this again. Ever. So even going into it, I was like, I want to do this and I want to finish it, and then I'm done, right? And I think I want to take the lessons that I learned from it and apply them to 100 milers, but I don't really have. And then so I hit a point. At mile 150. My electrolytes got really off, and it was one of those things too where usually I do good in the heat, but I don't know how I do in the heat at 135 miles, right?
Right.
And so I came into the aid station, and my calves were swollen, and my crew chief was worried about compartment syndrome and called the medics. It wasn't compartment syndrome, but it was some kind of heat illness. My resting heart rate was 95, and they're like, you need to go to the ER. And I was like, okay, so if I go to the ER, I still have time to come back and finish? No, if you go to the ER, you're done. And so we bargained with them, and I ended up drinking a bunch of electrolytes and sleeping for 4 hours, and they came back, and they gave me the okay to go, and then I almost didn't go on, and luckily my crew chief and my pacer at the time were like, no, we're just going to start walking.
Yeah.
We're just, and I'm like, no, but there's no way, and they're like, no, it doesn't matter. We're just going to start walking, right? But I think during that, it was tough because I was laying there at mile 150, and I was like, guys, I don't think I have another one of these in me. I don't want to do this again. And I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to finish, and then I'm not going to have a Cocodona finish.
Yeah.
But then, I think that's the other thing is I love learning these things to pass on to coaching clients. But it's kind of amazing what our bodies are capable of if we give them a chance, right?
Yeah. And you need the support around you. So you as a coach
Yeah.
provide support to your athletes. So I was at Chimney Pit, so mile 200, and took my 3-hour nap, got up, and I looked at Maria, who is crewing for me, and I just said to her, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. I know it's only 50 miles, but I don't want to fucking do this anymore. And she's like, one foot in front of the other, 50 miles will be over before you know it, and then you're done, right? And that was kind of like all I needed to hear to get me going again. So, it's an important role that as coaches that we play in, also letting our athletes know that we believe in their ability to keep moving forward and go on. It's important. Excuse me. So thank you so much for joining us. We have some rapid fire questions for you to leave the audience with so we can get a few laughs out of it. They almost 100% focus on food and what we'll call the controversial topics of food. And I put that in air quotes for those of you that are listening to the podcast because none of this is controversial. When it comes to pizza, are you putting pineapple on pizza? Is that a yay or a nay?
Oh. So that's a hard question for me because I can't eat pizza.
Okay. So then the answer is no.
So no, I wouldn't put, and actually I'm a very, when I did eat pizza, very plain, like sauce and cheese and that's it. So no.
Traditional. Yes.
Yes.
Team money, because our other co-owner puts pineapple on a pizza and it's desecration. Like no reason for it. Do you like licorice? Do you eat licorice? Let me rephrase.
I mean, so I'm not a sweets person, but fun licorice story at the Dells during Cocodona. So kind of right where Whiskey Basin starts and ends.
Yep.
There was this older couple, and she had a triangle, one little music
candle
that she was ringing to cheer for all the runners. And he was handing out licorice, and I'm like, he's like, do you want a piece of licorice? And I'm like, I can't not take your piece of licorice, right? So I don't have anything against licorice, but it's probably not the first thing I'd choose.
Was he offering you the red version or the black version of licorice?
The red, yeah, okay. And it was Twizzlers.
Yeah. That's the controversy right there. So that's the controversial question, folks. Twizzlers or Red Vines, red or black, right?
Yeah, so Red Vine actually has wheat flour in it, so I can't have Red Vine, so it's
out.
their fault.
I love it. You said you're not a sweets person, but everybody knows candy corn. So is candy corn an acceptable candy, or is it just candle wax coated in sugar?
Oh, it's candle wax coated in sugar. I had a bad experience with candy corn, and I cannot eat it.
I can't believe they're still selling it. Like, who's buying this crap?
It must be the nostalgia factor of it. I can't think of any other reason why somebody would buy that.
Do you recall, so Brock's, which also makes candy corn, they make circus peanuts. So it's like you remember those?
Yes.
Like thumbs up or thumbs down on those?
I mean, when I was little, I used to eat them, but I think it's because I thought they were cool. I don't think it's because I thought they tasted good.
Taste like shit. I always refer to them now as the things that Amazon packs your packages. It's like that styrofoamy nonsense. Peeps, every Easter they come out. Peeps, are they a candy? Are they an acceptable candy, or is it just marshmallow covered in glitter dust?
So when I ate Peeps, because I'm vegan, so no gelatin. When I ate Peeps, I liked Peeps, but I liked them when they were stale. So I'd let them sit out and let them get hard, and then that's when I would eat them. I didn't like the squishy Peeps. I liked the hard Peeps.
So you're probably the fourth or fifth person that's given us this advice on letting Peeps go stale. And one of our good friends, Adina O'Neill, sent me and Peeps, and she lives in Boston. So by the time they got across to the West Coast, they were stale. They're terrible. They're not any better. Like, you can't even chew them. Like, what's the point? We did get advice on one thing, though. So for those of you that are listening, so are your kids, are they following a vegan diet or not?
No, they are not.
So if you allow them to have Peeps, this is what we were told as well. Put toothpicks in the beaks, put them in the microwave, and they start peep jousting. And then the candy gets a little soft. So something for the kids. Entertain them. Favorite recovery food? Better yet, better question. What was the first thing you wanted to eat when you crossed the finish line and you had time to process when you were at Cocodona?
So it's funny because when I crossed the finish line, everybody was offering me food, And I was like, one of the things I did at Cocodona really well was like eat, right? I was on top of my nutrition, and everybody's like, what do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? And I'm like, guys, I don't want to eat anything. I just want to be able to not eat for a little while. So actually, I got a mocha from Starbucks. And then the next morning, when I think I like snacked that night, but I don't really remember any of it.
Yeah.
The next morning, I had this like chocolate covered granola bar from Trader Joe's, right? And I kept like pouring a little bit of it in a bowl and like eating it, and then I'm like, screw it, and I just ate the entire bag of granola bark. Yeah, so that was pretty amazing. And then I'm not a big sweets person, but like pints of vegan ice cream. Like in that first week, I probably went through 5 or 6 of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Favorite pint, which was?
Oh, they have a really good one at Trader Joe's. It's cold brew coffee ice cream with mochi in it. It's
solid.
Mochi, not mochi, boba. It's really good. Yeah.
So, Des, what's the website that people can go to find out you and engage you in being their coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's teamrunrun.com, and then do you have like show notes so we can put the exact address in?
Yep.
I'll send you the exact address, but if they go to find a coach and they type in Des, that'll bring me up. The other kind of cool thing is like Team RunRun helps with search engine optimization. So right now, if you type in Phoenix Running Coach, I'm like the first result that comes up in Google.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Hey, Des, thanks for coming on the show. It was great catching up with you. Look forward to having you on again when you get into Hard Rock and complete the event.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
Bye.